Hello everyone, welcome back to another video here on Play on GAA with me, Seamus Brady, your host, and for this one I am joined by Matthew Hurley, the GAA Statsman. Do follow him on Instagram if you haven't. The guy makes an insane amount of posts. Matthew, this one is going to be, we're going to try and solve all the problems in the GAA anyway. I mean, me and you both GAA fanatics, we both noticed quite a couple of things that have bothered us about the GAA. It is a great product. That's the first thing. We're both, super fans. But we're going to try and get into things that we'd like to see change in the GAA. How are you feeling about this?
Yeah, a bit nervous though. If anybody's going to watch this, maybe Larry McCarthy will watch this, tune into your channel, James, and maybe think of a few plans and put them before Congress. So we could be the heroes at the same time. So looking forward to this.
Yeah, well, let's get into it. I think, we have the ideas all in front of us here. I'm going to start with one that to me is the most obvious, and that is panel announcements. So it's a big thing in the GAA. As a Dublin fan, the one that I can remember the most is, of course, 2021. Stephen Cluxton, his impending retirement, or whether he is or whether he isn't playing, hung over Dublin's season for the entire year. The entire season was, is Cluxton playing? Is he not playing? If Dublin had had, a preliminary squad released at the start of the championship, like a 26-man panel or a 36-man panel, and Stephen Cluxton was not named in the squad, then everybody would have known from day one that he's not taking part. I think, obviously the potential side effects of that is, well, they're not pro players, life can change very quickly, players can go traveling, but I just make it a 36-man panel so that you have room to accommodate for players that you might not be using. What would you think about this? To me, it's a no-brainer.
It is a no-brainer, yeah. I suppose I'd have a 30-man panel. Maybe you were mentioning actually before we came on air about a World Cup type of squad. I don't think you have a World Cup type of idea. Maybe have a backup group of players as well. Have them six backup group of players, and just let them in the panel. And then if there's an injury or if there's, let's say, something dramatic happens or something like that, then you could bring in one of them or maybe two of them. So that'll solve all the problems instantly then. Yeah, it's a big thing because geez, I remember with I think it was Cork a few years ago in 2014, like we had a terrible game against Kerry, losing by 12 points. And then we played Sligo and subsequently then Mayo, and we brought in some new players. Like I think it was some fella from Castlehaven. We also brought in a certain Ian Maguire into the panel, a new addition, and we didn't know who he was literally. So maybe there's that sort of element as well that'll be taken away. But at the same time, like we talk about empathy towards journalists as well, or match reporters going to a game. Like if you have a squad out in front of you, I think that's the main thing out of this. And if the GAA aren't going to announce, or certain GAA accounts on Twitter, for example, aren't going to announce their teams, maybe it's worth looking at the squad numbers, possibly. I think that could be a decent idea. Like, that could be an option, or the teams announce their teams at least 2 days before throwing, and that'll solve a lot of problems indeed. The Cluxton thing, like everybody was speculating as well that year. I remember, like everybody was saying,
that hung over Dublin way longer than his retirement would have. It harmed Dublin way more.
Yeah, it did. Yeah, and geez, when you look at Dublin that season, like they struggled to beat Wexford, they struggled to beat Meath. Eventually, they succumbed to Mayo, and they produced not a very Dublin-esque performance that day, and maybe it was done, and it actually reverberated into the next year then in the league. So, like, that hung over Dublin for a pretty long time after that. Like, you don't know where Cluxton was going. Was he going in? Was he going out? So that has to be solved, definitely. And I suppose the squads as well have to be announced for a particular match day at least 2 days before throwing. I get there's injuries and stuff like that with Sigurdsson Cup, but look, I'll take it from my example. Like last year, I was working on a certain app, doing GA games, and I had to get the team news for every game. There were some counties that would have the team news literally 5 minutes before throwing.
Yeah,
I mean, that's a disgrace. It's an absolute disgrace. And when you think about it, they don't think about the GA fans. They don't think about people running the GA, providing a service, things like that. And even look at go back to my own county, Cork. when we played Galway in the league last year, yes, it was a brilliant game and we put it up to the potential All-Ireland finalists in fairness. But in that game, it was named Sean Meehan, for example, to be number 6. But then at the match Roker was named number 3. There was a huge mix-up with the numbers and stuff like that from the team that was initially named 2 days ago. I mean, that was ridiculous at the same time. I think it happened in the McGrath Cup as well with Cork. Maybe it's just Cork. Maybe it happens with other counties. But that is another part, Seamus, that needs to be fixed as well.
There was another player there. I can't remember, but it was in the Division 1 game last weekend where someone was wearing number 10 and came on, but they weren't in the programme as number 10. I can't remember off the top of my head which one it was, but that has happened. Like Sean Meehan wearing number 3 or number 6, but like number it confuses 3, everyone because you're thinking, yeah, that's not Sean Meehan. That's right, Sean Meehan doesn't look like that. It confuses everyone. And then on top of that, what I'd like to throw in is the changes that happen before the game. Like, teams list out their team and then they make 7 changes before the game starts. Like, it's impossible to keep track of who came in for who's playing where. Like, that needs to change as well. What could we do to kind of stop that?
What I was suggesting, like on Instagram recently, about Tyrone, for example, I think they had made 7 changes or something before the Cavan game in the McKenna Cup, and I was suggesting maybe put fines on these teams if they make something like more than 3 or more changes before throwing. Fine them because they won't do it again afterwards. You know, it's like when you think about, I know there's injuries. I know there's commitments and all that, but at the same time, where's the empathy for the people trying to spread GAA all over the planet, really? You know, to provide GAA content, like I provide stats, Scorpio provides scorekeeping, you provide content like match previews and stuff like that. That work could be go down the drain if they make like 7 or 8 changes a game. I mean, it's ridiculous, really. And even the Derry situation last year, well, it got pretty obvious as the year went on, with Emmett Bradley coming out of the team and Niall Turner coming in. Why do Derry keeps people in suspense when we know it's going to happen eventually? One change in particular, 22 for 9, simply. So
they kept doing that. I was like, just start Niall Turner, will you? Like, just put number 9 on him. Why you keep putting Emmett Bradley in the starting team when you're not going to play him? But yeah, like that's, to me, that's just a complete no-brainer. Panel announcements come in. It would not, on top of that as well. It's the last point that we'll put on this. On top of that, it would be a huge kind of moment for GAA fans to get excited about. Oh, like I know myself, especially when I was a younger lad. Oh, Dublin are naming their panel tomorrow. Like, imagine Dublin are naming their panel. Oh, you made the 30-man squad. Like, oh, you didn't make the 30-man squad, but you're in the, you're on the standby list. Like, it would be a massive moment for players to be named in the championship squad for that year, and it would be something really for the fans to get excited about. Imagine opening like an Instagram post and it was Cork's 30-man squad, and you'd read that and you'd be so excited for it. It would be, again, more great content and a great occasion for the GAA to get involved with. Imagine if 2 weeks before the championship, every county announced their panels for the summer. I think it would be a great occasion.
It would be, yeah. And to add to that, Seamus, as well, a few counties are actually doing it now, which is brilliant to see. Like, you see Kildare doing it the last few weeks. Sligo did it. I think Sligo set the trend, which was absolutely brilliant to see that. Lowe did it. I think Carlow did it. I think they're the only counties that did it, but it's such a good idea. I think, anyway. It's an unbelievable idea when you think about it. And even the faces of the players as well. Like, the players have become more recognisable as well as this as well, once they get mentioned on a social media post. Like, I wouldn't have known the Carlow or Sligo players to see. I would have seen them on print, obviously, with scores and all that. But I wouldn't see their faces, and I wouldn't have known them to see. But now that you look at them on social media, you think, oh yeah, that player. I know what he looks like now. I'll have a look out for him in the league. So I think that's a brilliant initiative, and more teams should implement it, definitely. And it shouldn't be just those 4 counties being the standard bearers.
Completely agree. Okay, so that is the first topic that we talk about. The second topic that I want to talk about is the clock, the GAA timekeeping system. My idea, the one that I've banged on if you watched pretty much any episode of Play on GAA ever, is that I believe that the men should introduce what the ladies have in their game, which is the countdown clock. I think, number one, the benefits. Number one, it takes it out of the referee's hands. The referee doesn't need to worry about how many minutes am I going to add on here. Then we wouldn't have any confusion about how much time should be played because it's the clock, and the clock decides how much time there is left. It's a robot. No one can argue with, what. Once the clock is being stopped, 70 minutes gets played. That's it. I think on top of that, you would see way less time-wasting tactics happening. You would see way less people trying to mess with free kicks, way less stupid, pointless substitutions going on. Who knows? We might not even have a replay coming up between Waddy Grandstand and Kilmacud Crooks. Like things like that, like stupid time-wasting things would not be happening as often if the clock was just stopped every time the ball went out of play. In my opinion, my idea is to have a clock that is counting down and it stops every time that the ball goes out of play. And then once it runs out of time, a hooter goes around the stadium. A big hooter, just like it does in the rugby and just like it does in the ladies Gaelic football. It goes around the stadium, the game's over, and then, so that hooter, the only little change I would make is that hooter would not actually be the end of the game. That hooter would be a signal that it is the last play. Just like in rugby, the next time the ball goes out of play, that's it. So you see in rugby when they have their scrums and then it gets turned over and the player kicks it out of play, that's it, the game's over. Because I think nobody can have any arguments with that. What are the benefits? I think, as I mentioned, takes it out of the referee's hands. He doesn't need to worry about timekeeping. How many times have we seen 3 minutes of additional time added on when realistically there should be 8 minutes of additional time added on? How many times have we seen controversy about how much extra added time was played? For example, Dublin Monaghan in the league in 2020, when the ref signalled 4 minutes of additional time and ended up playing 9 minutes of additional time. On top of that, there would be potentially huge and epic drama at the end of the game. Can you imagine if in an All-Ireland final, the hooter went and one team and the two teams were level and the hooter went and it was the last play of the game and you knew someone was going to take a shot to win the All-Ireland from open play? That would be unbelievable drama. And on top of that, could be iconic moments in the last 10 seconds if the whole crowd is counting down to victory. Can you remember Meath Dublin in the 2021 All-Ireland final when Meath had realised that they were winning, they were going to do it. In the last 10 seconds, they were hand passing the ball around and they knew they'd done it. And then they kicked the ball out of play when the hooter went and it was all over. That's iconic. To me, this would be way better than what we've got right now.
Exactly. So, and another one I wanted to add as well, we've seen in the Soccer World Cup recently as well, they introduced this thing where they integrated into the additional time all the time wasting, basically. Like in some games, you'd have 11 minutes additional time, and you're thinking, where does that come from? Like, but I was confused at the start. How is this being computed and stuff like that? And then FIFA revealed afterwards that they counted time wasting, substitutes, everything, basically when the ball was out of play, everything. And I think that was brilliant. We don't usually credit soccer in that kind of way, but I think that was brilliant. The rugby as well and ladies football. I think someone actually mentioned this in the past. Like that's taking for 3 different sports. I think they're the right things to do, but maybe the GAA just has too much pride to not take examples. It does, yeah. When you think about like ladies football in so many ways, I think like Gaelic football, I think is probably better quality in all honesty, but ladies football is run better when you think about it. It has live streaming for every game, which is brilliant to see. The timing, which you mentioned there, absolutely brilliant. The match programs very rarely change, and you get a Microsoft Excel sheet of every team as well in ladies football. So I think it's a brilliant sport.
And the
whole structures, championship structures as well. Like you have to, the GAA have to bite their tongue at some point and think, this is the way to go. This is the way to go. What ladies football is doing at the moment is brilliant. It's brilliant for competition. It's brilliant for fairness. It's brilliant for thinking of journalists as well. I think it's brilliant what the ladies football are doing. The timing, like this is a big one with the timing. Like we've seen so many times where I think it was Armagh Mayo, I think a few seasons ago, 2019 qualifiers, where Armagh thought they had more time basically. they've more time to get a point or something like that. I think Cork and Mayo 2014, like there was an instance
sorry to cut across. Do you remember Kerry Mayo in the league last year? And Mayo were on the attack, and they just passed the ball around and didn't attack, and then the referee just blew them up and just said, "Nah, the half is over. I've decided." Like, can you imagine if Mayo could look up at the clock and know we've got 15 seconds here? We have to move the ball quickly. We have to take the shot. Like, or if the hooter went and they had one more play to shoot, there would be no guessing game. It's so obvious to me. A countdown clock where the hooter goes and then it's the last play. It takes it out of the referee's hands. He can focus just on refereeing the game, and it would bring so much more drama and iconic moments to the game. You know, like the buzzer beaters in basketball, like the last minute shots, they would be in the GAA now too. Who wouldn't want that?
Exactly. So, and another example, which is a key example for this, I think, not take your shot on Derry Donegal. Do you remember that in 2021?
Yes.
Where Derry didn't take the shot, they were just passing it around. You were thinking, just take the shot, lads. And the ref eventually blew it up, saying, "That's enough, lads. You had your chance." And imagine if taking that example for the Mayo Kerry game, imagine if Derry looked at the clock, thinking 15 seconds, we have to get to Shane McGuigan or Emmett Bradley or Conor Glass here and kick the ball over the bar. You know, I think if Derry had that with them, I think they would have kicked it. You know, I think honestly, there's so much bending of the rules with the time. Like the referee, you don't know how much time he's going to add in a particular attack. So Derry clearly thought they had more time. You know, so that's a big thing. And another thing I was going to mention as well, Cork and Mayo in 2014, like Cork were 2 points down, 2 points down in All Ireland quarter final. Colm O'Neill was as close to the penalty box as he could get for a free. He asked the referee how much time is left, and he said, "Oh, we'll get another kick out going here." So Colm O'Neill kicks the ball over the bar. Mayo then takes the kick out. The referee blows the whistle. So, like, I mean, there's so much bending with the rules, with timing and issues and all that. We've had so many examples, and I think it's time for the GAA to bite their tongue. Whether you follow rugby's example, I think I know I've gone on about LGFA, but rugby's absolutely brilliant. Six Nations starting tomorrow as well. You have one attack, you have one chance, make it count. Sometimes I think rugby does it overboard though, because like if there's a penalty kick or something like that, the team could still go on and get the attack. It's only when a scrum is called or the ball goes out of play that the referee blows the whistle then. So maybe it goes overboard at times, whereas LGFA just blows it right at the dot. You know, and that's a big thing. Yeah, I think the GAA needs to follow one of them rules from soccer, rugby, soccer from the World Cup. I don't think it's been integrated to the Premier League yet. Rugby and LGFA. Either of them three will be okay, but the GAA has to do something about this timing issue because it's been dominating, controversies for way too long now in the GAA.
Agreed, 100%. That's another thing that needs to be changed. Another thing that needs to be changed in terms of player welfare. No crossover for the players. And what I mean by that is once the panels are named for the competitions, once a player is included in a panel for a college, for a county, or for a club in their senior championship, they are not allowed to play for another team at the high level. You think about Conor Glass and Ethan Doherty playing for Derry there when, there's a replay coming up for what he gained down Kilmacud Crokes, probably. You think about Robert Finnerty, he's after getting injured there for Galway. How many games has he played for DCU and Galway in the last month? Tom O'Callaghan as well. I think, 2 games in 3 days or something with University of Galway. And then you look at Kieran Malloy, played 2 games in 1 day for Corofin and then his college as well. You look, Tommy Conroy, his injury last year. We're overworking these players. So in my opinion, once a player is playing in the Sigerson Cup, he should not be playing in any other competition. Yeah,
I think so as well. I don't want to sound too selfish now, but the forward Cork need, for example, on Sunday against Kildare, is Carl O'Mahony, and he played the Sigerson Cup going to penalty shootout on Wednesday night. And you might sound a bit selfish saying Carl O'Mahony should play that, but if you're thinking of this in the context of player welfare, he shouldn't be playing that game. None of the Cork players should be playing on Sunday against Kildare as long as they're involved with their college. Robert Finnerty really shocked me on Saturday. I don't know why he was actually playing. There was no need for him to play because I don't think that game would have defined Galway's season in a way. So I don't know why he played. The one that baffles me now, I know Rory Gallagher is saying, "Oh, I've done it in the past with Fermanagh. I played with a college and stuff in 1 week and stuff like that." He said that in the media last week, but I'm just thinking, I know he's a very good manager, Rory Gallagher, but times have changed. You know, GA players have other commitments as well as playing. Like I don't think Conor Glass, for example, like I think other than David Clifford or possibly Paddy, Conor Glass was probably the most worked GA player last season. When you look at he was playing for Ulster University in the Sigerson Cup. He was playing for Derry in a long season, the All Ireland Championship. Watty Graham's Glen, and he's back playing with Derry again in a game where, let's be honest, Seamus, they were always going to win anyway against Limerick, even
Yes.
without those guys. So I don't know why he was playing even against Low this weekend. There's no need for him. No need.
Yeah.
You know, it's baffling really that they're playing this game. Like Tom O'Connell, I think, has picked up an injury as well, so he's out. Matthew Tierney, he'll probably play now at the weekend as well. So like there's a cry from loads of other counties. I think Paul Keady from Leitrim is another one who's been playing week in week out for UL at Sigerson, and now he's one of Leitrim's main players, so he's going to get overworked. You know, it's ridiculous, really, when you think about it. And yeah, like we were talking off air about players' commitments as well, and all that. And like I'd wonder, when do GA players actually go on a night out now? You know,
Yeah,
like
literally.
it's
When do
unbelievable.
they just go to their friend's house and just chill out? Like when do they? Whenever they're not training or play, especially in January,
Yeah,
like it
yeah,
must be
it's
tough. Like especially because these lads are in college. Like they've got
yeah,
the first week back in college, all those events that are happening, and they have to take themselves out of these events. Like that must not be too fun. Like we have to treat them as human beings and not as robots in a way.
exactly. So another thing, other than well, nights out are brilliant and all that, but another thing as well, assignments as well. Like a
Oh,
player could
so
have loads of assignments
the
to
thesis and
do.
everything.
Exactly, and you have MCQs and you have group projects and stuff like that as well. You know what? It's ridiculous, really, that we're overworking these GA players. Like, imagine a GA player, you're playing Sigerson Cup, you're playing intercounty, you didn't have assignments, you have like a 60% assignment for March or something like that when it's hitting breaking point in the Alliance League as well.
And you
Like,
probably have to work as well. You probably have a job.
yeah,
You probably work
exactly.
somewhere because you're not getting paid to play Gaelic football.
Yeah. And there's another issue we probably should have added on as well. Well, this is controversial, but should the GA be a professional sport now?
That's diving very deep. I
Yeah.
wasn't ready for that, but they certainly train and they give the time that professional athletes do. There's no doubt about that.
Mm. There isn't, no. Like, even I was speaking to former Cork goalkeeper for LGFA, Martine O'Brien, and she was saying recently, when COVID lockdowns were happening and the intercounty were elite players apparently, and they weren't being paid as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how could you call it an elite sport when they're not going to? Well, I suppose they act like elite athletes, and they're unbelievable sports people, but they don't get paid at the end of the
Yeah,
day. They have other things. They have assignments. They have nights out. They have documents to fill for college as well. I'm sure. Look, I'm on Erasmus at the moment, and the amount of documents I have to fill, and
yeah.
they work a podcast as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, imagine if you're a player in this situation playing Sigerson Cup as well as Ulster Championship or Alliance League or something like that. You'd be drained, really.
For
You know?
sure. For sure. And we're going to come on to the new GA calendar draft that me and you have both kind of agreed on that we could look into. But before we get there, we're going to touch on more different changes that we would like to see. The first one is one that I think both of us would absolutely crave. More content. More
Yeah.
content in the GA. Considering that the GA is the biggest sport in the country, we have the Sunday game and League Sunday and some live matches shown on RTE. Then we have TG Caher chipping in with their bit, which, let's be real, TG Caher contribute so much more than they should be able to. They contribute all the GABO shows. They show the highlights. They show Lech Regale. But in terms of RTE should be doing more programs like the one that they did on Mick O'Dwyer, the one that they did on Sean Boylan. Like, off the top of my head, I'm thinking, surely there has to be a documentary on Brian Cody coming out. Jim Gavin. Like these people that have, Bernard Brogan is such a legend. Like Stephen Cluxton. I know I'm only saying Dublin people here, but like Henry Shefflin. More documentaries on these, fascinating GAA people coming out. Like the Laker Gale documentaries, the one on Kieran Donaghy was fantastic. Like it really gives you an insight into what their life was like playing for the county. Like more content. There should be, like, I've a list here of what I want to see the GAA do going forward. Preview shows, like me and you doing this here. There's so many people around the country that would love to do this. Ex-players, like ex-managers, fans. Like RTE could easily do, and TG4 could easily do preview shows where they get people from all different types to come in and preview games, review games, in-depth analysis, player documentary shows, Laker Gale style content on RTE, rivalry documentaries, where you have, say, a documentary on Meath and Cork's rivalry at the end of the 1980s into the early 1990s, Dublin and Meath's rivalry, Kerry Cork, Armagh Tyrone, documentary on these rivalries. More of the Sean Boylan and Mick O'Dwyer type documentaries, GAA fan shows, club shows, where they give you a background on this is what this club is about. For example, Dublin GAA ran this series for a little while where they did My Club, and they did a few episodes. I think they did one on Kilmacud, they did one on Afina, they did one on St. Vincent's, where they just spoke to a few players and said, what is this club about to you? What does it mean to you? And they give a background into how the club was formed, how it came about, and the great moments in the club's history. That would be great. Club Sunday game. How we don't have a highlight for the club games is unbelievable. And then you were talking about how the ladies game does this perfectly. Live streams for, like, each county, in my opinion, should take on the role of editing highlights of their club games and putting them up on YouTube, as, like, say what me and you are doing here, a live stream up on YouTube for people to watch, where it's just highlights of the games. So, for example, in Dublin, Ballymun-Kickham's versus Lucan Sarsfields. Here's the highlights cut down by someone who works for Dublin GAA TV. It literally, all it takes is edit a video for half an hour and then put that up. It'd be so easy to do, and it would bring in so much more eyeballs to the sport. I've gone on a tangent there, but my main point is more content in the GAA, surely.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a few points on this as well. Like, when you look at RT, for example, like it's our national broadcaster that doesn't show enough of our national sport. Do you know how ridiculous that sounds, Seamus?
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable, really. Like, people are complaining about programs like Dancing with the Stars and Operation Transformation when we have our national sport right at our doorstep, and RT aren't using it. They basically, like, I remember back in the day, I think 2012, 2013, I used to always tune into Championship Matters with Marty Morrissey. That was a brilliant show during the week on a Thursday. It was you get some journalists, you get a few former players in as well. They talk about the discussions and the weekly discussions about the GAA in general. That's gone now. You basically have a podcast now that's so bland now. I don't even listen to it. It's ridiculous. And I've said this so many times as well. Yourself, Aaron, John, and boys. Well, I wouldn't count myself, be honest. I'm not at that stage yet, but you know what I mean. We're carrying the preview shows at the moment. And it's just small YouTubers that are mostly in college or have other day jobs that are basically carrying them rather than RTE. I mean, it's ridiculous, really. And like, you mentioned the documentaries as well. I'd definitely be up for those documentaries, the rivalries and stuff like that, just getting a sense of what they're about. And you mentioned TG Carroll's carrying the GAA. I remember, like, you were talking about in the club documentaries and stuff like that. I seen Off the Ball with Ashley and O'Reilly. They do in the club documentaries. They did one with Kilcoo, I think. They did one with Ballygunner. Just inside what was going to happen in the club. Ashley basically went down to the dressing rooms of them particular clubs and spoke to a player. I think for Ballygunner was Desi Hutchinson, and Kilcoo, I think, was Caelan Doherty. She just spoke to them about the club, about how it's risen through the ranks at under sixes, under eights, etc., etc., etc. I think that would be unbelievable, really.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
It's the fact Off the Ball and TG Carr are doing their utmost, I think. But RTE are like, oh my God, it's frustrating in many ways. I think the pundits they've brought in is probably better, but they need to be doing more, I think. They definitely need to be doing more. Even you mentioned the fan channels. What that reminded me of, have you ever come across Robbie Lyle from Arsenal Fan TV? He had his own show on
Yes.
Channel 4, say,
Hmm.
with these fans all gathered together in some garage and
Yeah.
basically doing mixes and stuff like that. Imagine
That was
you do
brilliant.
it.
Like that was great
Yeah.
content. And to tag on to that, the kickoff was another one. It was ran
Mm.
by Drew Geordie. He was a Newcastle fan, and he had people like Rory Jennings, who was a Chelsea fan. Hugh Izzy was an Arsenal fan. Lawrence McKenna was a Liverpool fan, and they'd be watching the games together, and it would be just pure fans watching the game. It would be so much more enjoyable in a way. And then sometimes they'd supplement it with a Kieran Dyer or an ex-professional footballer would sit with them. But on top of that, you could see how much those people were enjoying being able to be a bit more loose when it comes to things. Like they were able to swear, on a live stream and not be like, oh, I shouldn't have said that. They were able to be just a fan again around other football fans. And I really enjoyed watching those shows. Can you imagine if, like, this is the other thing that I'm talking about with RTE, how they haven't seen now that you don't need to be on telly to make content now. You don't need a slot from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock. RTE can make high quality content around the clock. They can say, okay, for whatever reason, we're still showing Operation Transformation on Wednesdays at 8 o'clock. But if you want to watch a GAA preview show hosted by Anthony Daly in the studio, and he's going to have Henry Shefflin with him, and he's going to have Brian Hogan with him, and he's going to have Diarmuid O'Sullivan with him, and he's going to have Anna Geary with him. Do you want to watch that? Yeah, okay. Well, there's a YouTube live stream for free at 8 o'clock. Yeah. As if you're watching the telly. Yeah. Why did he not do that? Why?
I really don't know. I really don't know. And even like the previous shows, like even something small as well, like Off the Ball do something. I don't think they're doing it so far this year, but they did last year. Quick picks. I think that's just a brilliant bit of content. Just to do predictions for the weekend as well. And even going back to Robbie Lyle's show, I remember it was some Arsenal fan coming up against this Man United fan doing diss tracks. Imagine a diss track with Aaron Prendergast versus Davy Rispin from We Are Meath. That would be unbelievable.
Yeah.
And that would be quality content, Do you
remember that video? It was like a Dublin fans against Donegal fans, and the Dublin fans were saying we're gonna give you a Malahide and a Donabate and this. It was great. Like that was such funny content to watch, and it did kind of make you look forward to the game. Then okay, who's gonna win? Like this type of thing. Yeah. I've even seen one where I think it was Sky Sports did a little face-to-face where it was like a boxing style face-to-face where they put Piers Morgan, who was obviously a well-known Arsenal fan, and they put him in front of Alan Sugar, who obviously used to own Tottenham Hotspur. And they put them two in front of each other in like the gloves are off style face-off before a North London derby. And the two of them were like throwing jabs at each other. And it was just brilliant to watch. Like I think Alan Sugar said something which did make me laugh. It was Piers Morgan was asked which of the Spurs players would you take in the Arsenal side, and then Alan Sugar cut across and said, well, you can tell by his chins that he loves a Deli Alley. Like that type of content was funny. And for the GAA, there's so many charismatic GAA fans that would gladly step in to do a bit of preview work on RT's live streams. Like if RT asked either of us, would you come and do like a bit of work on one of our live streams? Like we're not going to pay you, but like, would you like to do it? I would snap their hand off to do it. And I'm pretty sure like you would do it. It's still working for the national TV station, a station that I have so much respect for, but I wish they would just make more content. You don't need to be on telly to do it. You can make a YouTube channel and use the money that you have to make high quality GA content 24/7. And how there's not a Club Sunday game is beyond me as well.
Yeah,
that's like talk to me about that. That like especially during the season when there was no GAA on apart from the club game, and we still had no Club Sunday game.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Like we're getting to that stage now where we just want to watch the club games and stuff like that. Like even for example, when I'm doing scoring stats for even a preview to the final. I'll do my best for Watty Graham's Glen and Kilmacud leading up to that before the controversy obviously happened. Before the game, I did scores for each team. It was a minefield trying to get even the scores. I mean, it's a disgrace, really, when you think about it. I think the only counties where you could get all match reports provided, what I've seen anyway, are Cork, Leitrim, and Kildare. That's not good enough. Not good enough. It really isn't. If we want our club game to progress, we need to have a club Sunday game. We need to have some sort of site as well, where scores and match reports and stuff like that. A data system as well. A statistics data system. Something basic, I mean, it's ridiculous, really. And the fan element, I want to go on this as well. I remember something with Lad Bible. They did a fan against a fan, like a big game leading up to Liverpool and Man United. They get a Man United fan like I don't know, Flex or somebody, and then a Liverpool fan, someone for the Redmen TV or something, and they'd have their points, and strongly agree, in the middle, strongly disagree, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, imagine if you had that for, let's say, for example, Mayo against Galway. A Mayo Galway fan walk into a bar, have the 2 glasses, and what's in the glasses are Guinness. I think that would be just so good. Such good content. In a lead up to a game as well. Like, that one infuriates me as well. We're leading up to games, like, for example, a big Connacht game, which is oncoming now in April between Mayo and Galway in the first round of the Connacht Championship. We should have a preview for that game. A load of content coming out of RT's ears for that game. But there's none of it. I mean,
like I got this thing last year that was like with the championship, and we'll come to the calendar. But I got this feeling off the championship last year, like they were trying to just rush through it and just get it over with, almost like, okay, let's just get this game as quick as possible, penalty shootouts and all this. I was like, what is going on here? Like, they're literally just trying to wrap this up as quick as they can. Like, I guess not doing the Club Sunday game to me is like, do you want people to watch? Like, because other stuff as well, like Dublin, for example, Dublin GAA release the full game. They release, you can watch a live stream of the full match again, but they don't release any highlights. So if you say you miss, I don't know, St. Vincent's playing Nafina, which would be a great game, a rivalry between 2 clubs that are so close to each other. Like, that's a class game to watch. You can watch highlights of Nafina versus St. Vincent's. Everyone will watch that. That would draw in way more eyeballs than watching the full game if you miss it. But if you could watch a little 10-minute highlights package, a lot more people would watch that. I guarantee you that. And, like, again, I'm putting myself, like, I would gladly do it. I would gladly edit the highlights, put them together, and do that 100%. So the GAA, in my opinion, should do that. Each county should take the lead in sorting out the highlights. Take a leaf out of the LGFA book. Live stream the club games. And when you live stream the club games, put up highlights after. Use yourself as a YouTube channel. Use YouTube. Use TikTok. Use these platforms to promote our game. Upload little highlights packages onto TikTok. Do you not see GAA now on YouTube? They upload little 2-minute highlight clips of matches. I love watching them. I love watching them. They just give you a feel for how the game went. If they uploaded them for club games, they would draw in a lot more eyeballs. But one thing for sure, more content in the GAA. But before we leave this, is there anything else that you'd like to add on to that?
Jeez, there's so much things over that, and I think I've got a load off my chest over that. But I'm just so infuriated. I want to say this about RT not showing our national game. Like, there's a load of people complaining about certain shows, like say the Operation Transformation, Dancing with the Stars, and stuff like that. The only decent, let's be honest, other than GA, the only decent show on RT at the moment, when you take everything into account, is Artists for This Family. Let's be honest here. It's crap shows now. To be honest, the comedy on RT now is gone down the drain. The GA content has gone down the drain. Ryan Tubridy's getting paid more. It's ridiculous, really. And to be honest, other than GA as well, RT is in state of bother, really. Like, I'd rather watch Virgin Media or TG Carr any day of the week. Like, even TG Carr, you talk about content as well. I want to add this as well. Leah Crogale. Why doesn't RT have that sort of thing? Brilliant program. Brilliant. They had some sort of program for when sadly I think it was what was the Cork manager that passed away, Eamon Ryan, Cork LGFA manager, passed away. TG Carr instantly put up a program dedicated to him.
Yeah.
You know, and why can't
even then, in terms of noticing talent coming forward, to me, there's two guys, right? Two guys that I think would be brilliant for RTE. They're the two Johnnies. I think if RTE went to them and said, look, we love your content. We want you to come work for us. We want you to go around Croke Park on All-Ireland final day and interview fans. And we want you to help build up a buzz, build up an atmosphere. You know, because they are. Look at them at concerts around the country. Like, people love them all around the country. And if they were at GAA matches saying, like, you know, who are you supporting today? But like, if their face was there, if they worked for RT, they'd bring like a bit of fun back into it. They would bring a bit of fun into it. Yeah. I'd love to see them working for RT, doing kind of sideline work. They'd be able to knock some crack out of the GAA lads as well. I mean, did you watch that video where it's Johnny Smacks against Kieran Donaghy point kicking competition like that? Yeah. That type of stuff was so funny to watch. They'd be a brilliant fit. So yeah, to wrap up on this, just more content in the GAA. You don't need to be on a TV slot to make content. We would love to see RTE and TG Cahir and Virgin or whoever comes in to cover the GAA. We would love to see some preview shows, review shows, in-depth analysis shows after the game, player documentaries, rivalry documentaries, Laker Gale style content on RTE, more manager documentaries about the likes of Sean Boylan, GAA fan shows, club Sunday games, and then live streams of club highlights from around the country for games that we did not see uploaded onto YouTube. So yeah, that was definitely a massive one, but definitely one that we want to see change in the GAA. Next one, I will admit this as a Dublin fan. Dublin play less games in Croke Park. Sorry, Dublin play more games in Parnell Park. I don't know why I branded it like that. Dublin play more games in Parnell Park and play less games in Croke Park. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant idea. Like, I was discussing this on my podcast last week as well about particularly the Dublin Loud game, the last game of the season, when you could essentially think Loud would be relegated and Dublin would be already promoted. And imagine that atmosphere in Croke Park. It'd be dead. You know, there'd be seagulls just flying around the place looking for leftovers. You know, just imagine the scene, Seamus. It was just so bad to watch. Fair enough, have to Kildare game because that's a derby. But at the same time, the next few games, I don't think Clare are going to bring a big load of football fans. I'm being honest now, they're not. Who else are they playing at home? I think it's only Clare Loud, I think they're playing at home this year, other than Kildare. So
both of them together won't bring the crowd that Kildare brought.
No, they won't. Simply won't. Like, especially if Loud are already down. Like, what's the point of travelling all the way to Croke Park when tickets are sky high? When you even get to the stadium, you need to get a train as well. That's adding on to more cost. And then the food around Croke Park is way more expensive.
Good luck with that.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, and even like I think in 2016, I think Dublin were playing Meath one time. And Dublin, as usual, were miles ahead of Meath. And this game was on at 6:00 in the evening because Ireland were playing France in the Euros that day. And then they decided to push this back to 6:00. You could basically see on the TV the seagulls just flying around the place.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know, is this a comedy to watch or a GAA game?
That's what I mean. Like, from watching Mail Galway there in McHale Park, I watched that game with pure envy. I was like, they're so close to the action. Like, they're so close. It's much more of a raw feeling of it. It feels like a championship game. It feels like, serious stakes involved. And if Dublin had played Kildare in that opening game of the league, and if they had played that in Parnell Park, I'm telling you right now, Parnell Park would have been jammed out. The atmosphere would have been awesome. Like, it would have felt like a proper carnival atmosphere. And then on top of that, like, we were talking about this, like, it gives Dublin people more of a connection to the team. Because when you watch them in Croke Park, they're so far away. Like, they're down on the pitch. you're nowhere near them. But on Parnell Park, you get to like see them, because obviously Parnell Park has that, bit where they have to run from the changing rooms across the tarmac onto the pitch, and you get to see them run past you, and you're like, God, they're huge, they're big. Like, you kind of, you look at I remember, watching Dublin hurling playing Parnell Park when I was a young lad, and you were just like, it was so cool to be so close to your heroes, to your, to your team. Dublin don't have that because they play all the games in Croke Park. Number one, it gives Croke Park more breathing room so that the pitch can recover. And number two, it would just be awesome to have, those type of games played in Parnell Park where Dublin get that, real connection again between the fans and the teams. And then on top of that, it takes away, let's be honest, I'll admit this as a Dublin fan, Dublin's really, really unfair advantage of having so much time to experience playing in Croke Park.
It would do, yeah. And I suppose when you talk about the hurlers, integrating with the fans as well, like we were talking about this on my podcast as well last week. Imagine some kid comes up to Conor O'Hanlon and asks, will you sign my shirt?
Yeah.
Like Kieran Kilkenny, these heroes. I mean, that'd
Yeah.
be incredible to watch. And even, like, I was, like, even see the size of the players and stuff like that as well. Like, I was close to the action for St. Finbarrs against Castlehaven in the Cork semi-finals. And even looking at some of the players, Ben O'Connor, I know he doesn't play GAA at the moment, he plays rugby. But even looking at him from behind, oh my God, he's absolutely...
he'd play rugby.
Yeah, exactly. You definitely would. Like, and it'll give you a bit of a culture shock as well, to show you, like, Con is pretty big on TV, but imagine if you come up close to him in real life.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be just memories to live with a fan forever as well. It'd be absolutely brilliant. And Parnell Park, I think it'll be grand for games against Clare and Louth. If Newbridge is fine, surely Parnell Park is fine. I mean, it's ridiculous why even Division 2 games can't be held there. And like, fair enough, have the Kildare game there in Croke Park, because the Kildare would have produced a very good performance like they did last Saturday, in fairness to them. But the Low game in particular, come on, like, in Croke Park, there'll be probably, I don't know, would there even be 1,000 there? It'll just look ridiculous, really.
Yeah, it will feel like one of those COVID games.
Yeah,
where there was no one in the stadium. You could hear the training session. It felt like a training session. But definitely, I think for Dublin, it would actually be a good thing. I'm saying this as a Dublin fan. I would like to see us play more games in Parnell Park and less games in Croke Park, because then getting to Croke Park would feel like something again. Like, if you remember the whole thing about, getting to play in Croke Park, if you make your Dublin debut, you play in Croke Park.
Yeah.
Like, it's as simple as that, no matter if it's in the league or if it's in the championship. There are people who have not made a championship start for Dublin who have played in Croke Park for Dublin. Yeah, they played one game in the league. And the likes of Emlyn Mulligan, who is a legend of Leitrim football, has only ever played one game in Croke Park. Like, come on. Like, it's not fair that we get to play in this so much. It gives Dublin a massive advantage in terms of getting used to the pitch, the dimensions, what system works on the pitch, etc. And then we're more ready for teams coming to Croke Park. It's like our home pitch. So I think, look, for the game and for Dublin, I think it would be better if Dublin played more games in Parnell Park going forward. Then we have only 2 left. The last one after this one is quite big. So I am going to start with this one first, which is the discipline in the GAA. And now, obviously, over the last couple of years, me and you have done numerous podcasts where we've noticed there's just... Is it that there is more fights in the GAA now happening? Or is it a case of that it's just getting recorded more, there's more coverage of it, there's more camera angles? Because if you look back at the games in the 1990s, Meath and Dublin boxed the head off each other every game that they played against each other. Cork and Meath was like a bloodbath every time those sides played each other. But you think about the Armagh Galway brawl last year, Armagh Tyrone, Armagh Donegal. It seems to be a trend here, but like Dublin Tyrone going down the tunnel in the league last year. Dublin Mayo had a brawl there at the end of the 2021 All-Ireland semi-final. Like, but on top of that, there's stuff like the closed fist tackle, like that is happening all the time. Like, what can the GAA do, in your opinion, to kind of quell this, ill discipline. And do you think the GAA even wants to?
They have to. They have to, Seamus, when you think about it. And like the main incident, like I know people talk about the Galway Armagh one, but the one in Parnell Park between Oulart the Balla and
Oh God,
that was
Nave Baroque.
ridiculous.
Yeah,
Nave Baroque, that's the club, and jeez, that was ridiculous. It went out to the fans,
I
and
called that. I called that.
yeah,
If you watch one of my old videos, I
mm,
said the Tyrone after the Tyrone Armagh brawl. Do you remember the Tyrone
mhm,
Armagh brawl on the
yeah,
end line? I said that brawl was right on the crowd. That was
mhm,
right on the crowd. And there was no real steward presence there to prevent a nutcase hopping over and getting involved. Look at Mayo Kerry in 2014. Do you remember that big fella that had
yeah,
to take about 7
yeah,
stewards to take him off the pitch? He was trying to get at the players. He was trying
yeah,
to get at the ref.
yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's only a matter of time, in my opinion, before, especially when you consider the fact that the GAA is a community-based game, right? People know things about the players. Right? Let's just say for a second that there is some personal, unpleasant business going on in a player's life, right? Two teams, let's say a Louth and a Meath, I'm not picking anyone in particular, or an Armagh, Tyrone, or a Donegal, or Monaghan, Cavan, for example, two counties right beside each other. They play against each other, and a brawl kicks off on the end line of the pitch. And then one of the fans in the stand who knows something quite unpleasant, quite personal about one of the players says something to the player when he's already fired up, he's already aggressive, and he's already ready to hit someone. Is he really not going to hit the fan? Really? Especially if the fan jumps over the gate and comes onto the pitch. Like,
mhm,
look at the Detroit Pistons and Indiana Pacers brawl in the NBA in 2004. Like, Ron Artest got hit with a cup and just ran into the crowd and went at the fan. Like, do you really
mhm,
think? And then it ended up with fans and players fighting each other. Like, do you
mhm.
really think that can't happen in the GAA? Of course it can. And it happened in Nave Barrow against Oulart the Balla.
It did, yeah. And an incident that springs to memory in other sports, I think, is Eric Cantona against Crystal Palace in the
There
90s.
you go.
Remember that? He
Mm-hmm.
karate kicked the fan, and there was, or even Granit Xhaka telling the fans to,
Yeah.
do one against
Yeah.
Crystal Palace as well. Like, fans can have an effect on players as well. And when you think about that, was the Emirates Stadium, which is huge.
Yeah.
Imagine this in a park you're in, or a Parnell Park, or a Tullamore. Imagine if that happened. You
Yeah.
know, jeez, it'd be hell to pay, I'd say. And like, even looking at last year, the Roscommon and Wexford incidents where somebody comes on the pitch and assaults a referee.
Yeah.
He has to be banned for life. I
Yeah.
don't care.
Yeah.
That's inexcusable. And that's how the GA haven't fixed that. And I've said this on plenty of podcasts. Louth and Meath, when Louth fans went on to the Crow Park, attacked the referee, and I'm thinking, we're 13 years later, and this is still prevalent in our game.
100%. And like, on
Mhm.
top of that, there's been plenty of people that I've had discussions with, people that play GAA, people that just watch GAA, people that play the game, that have just told me that sometimes they play club games and they can very quickly tell that there are certain people who play GAA just to fight people. Like, just
Mhm. Yeah.
to use it as a loophole, that if you hit, like, let's be real, right? If you attack someone on a GAA pitch, you're sent off. If you
Yeah.
attack someone after the GAA match, you have a court case. Why is that a difference? Why is there
Mhm.
somehow a loophole for just, like, if you did, like, let's say the Nave Barogue and out at the Balla game, a woman picked up a hurley stick and hit some fella over the back of the head 3 times with a hurl.
Yeah.
If you went outside a chipper with a hurley stick and hit some fella over the back of the head 3 times, you're arrested.
Yeah.
This woman is banned from a couple of games. Like, what is this? Like,
It's just.
in my opinion, the first step to do it, and I'm sure you agree with this, the first step is, if you cause serious physical harm to another person, that carries the same punishment on the pitch as it would carry off the pitch. So if you punch someone in the head and break their jaw on the pitch, that carries the same punishment as if you did it outside of a match.
Yeah, exactly. So, and these people need to be banned completely from stadiums. And what I'm thinking as well, I think there was a Wicklow game, an under-12 game, where there was a brawl in the crowd.
Yeah, that was, I think, yeah, I remember that video going viral where, like, I think it was a rumor that someone kind of shoved one of the players or hit one of the players, like, of an under 15 match, and then all the parents started fighting each other. Like, that's mental. Like, that's a level that, like, you can't let that continue. I would be saying, look, definitely very, very harsh punishments for any on-pitch violence during club games. Definitely. And especially after the game. If the game's over and a fight breaks out, no red card bans. You're just attacking someone when the game's over. Okay, if someone hits someone in the heat of the moment in a GAA scuffle and they break their jaw, I wouldn't necessarily be saying criminal punishment, but I'd be saying definitely severe bans. Severe bans. Not just a red card where you can turn up at a junior match next week and say, oh, that's not my name. I'm this guy now. And then you get to play. Because let's be real, that happens all over the country. Sure, we were saying this. Remember, we were on a podcast and a fan commented saying that some guy that he had seen interfere with a referee just showed up at the next game, even though he was banned. Like, that's definitely happening. Do you really think that guy that hit the ref has not been to a GAA match since? Really?
Jeez, probably
I would
has.
put
Yeah,
money
he
down
probably
that
has.
he has. He's put a
What do you
cap
think
on or
about?
something and he stood on the sideline. I'm telling you, he's been back because
and
there's no security on it.
And what I'm thinking as well, it boils over to the fans as well. I've been mentioning this so many times as well. Like, I did a TikTok recently about a bunch of Kilkenny fans basically doing English football chants towards a Galway fan who barely did anything.
Yeah.
You know, and imagine if they did those pretty harsh chants in a close knit game like in Tullamore or Portlaoise or Parallel Park. The player would hear it. And all will break loose then. I mean, and it's terrible to say this, Seamus, but it has to be fact as well. It'll take something absolutely tragic or terrible for the GAA to take action about this.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
You know, it's
my thing to wrap it up before we move on to our last one, because our last one will be a significant one discussion anyway, is what I would do is what David Coldrick did. So just a red card to whoever hits anyone on the pitch, no matter how many players. I wouldn't care. Right? You hit someone, red card. You hit him back, red card. You're gone as well. All these things factor in. And then I would also introduce what rugby have, which is a post-game VAR, where the referee sits down again with his officials and watches the game. And if he sees anything on the pitch that he did not see when he was originally reffing the game, he is well within his rights to red card that player after the game. So, for example, I saw one there where Glen were playing against Kilcoo. There was a throw up in the last play of the game. The Glen player won it and the Kilcoo player hit about 7 boxes into the Glen player's ribcage, and he was just frustrated and he just lashed out and just started thumping the Glen fella body shots. Okay, so the referee sits down, watches that, and says, okay, whoever that fella is, well, he's suspended for the next 3 games of the championship next season. Because it's not fair that he gets away with it just because I didn't see it in the heat of the moment. He got to hit someone and he got a free shot off. And I guarantee if players knew that there was no sneaky way of doing it where you could get away with it, we would see a lot more. You think about Philly McMahon's eye gouge on Kieran Donaghy. If they were able to watch that back and say, okay, that's absolutely an unbelievably dirty foul. Next year, you're suspended for the entire Leinster Championship. Or something like that. Do you know what I mean? Like, if they were able to do that, I guarantee players would not put in as much dirty tackles. They would not hit people as quickly because they know there is consequences. They are not going to think, oh, maybe I just need to do it in a way that I can get away with it. They would know there's consequences. If the Armagh Galway brawl, Coldrick came in and sent off 6 or 7 fellas. Sorry, it was David Goff in the Armagh Tyrone game. But if Goff came in and sent off Right, Reno O'Neill, gone. Sean Kelly, gone. Damien Comer, gone. Like, and then they come back out for extra time with 11 lads on the pitch each. Like, it would definitely send a message of, you're not going to get away with it. Don't care how many lads have to go. If you hit someone, you're off.
Yeah.
That's the best way to do it.
And one more thing before we go on to a broad topic, Seamus, as well. A red card at the last minute. Like I looked at this firsthand. I think it was 2022 All-Ireland Club semi-final between Kilcoo and St. Finbarrs. The Kilcoo player clearly hits the Bars player, gets sent off. But then Kilcoo were back up to 15 when it goes to extra time.
Yeah.
How? Like, why? Seriously,
Yeah.
like a guy basically stupidly pushes a player, gets a red card, rightly so, and then Kilcoo are back up to the full complement, and then Kilcoo coast home afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
That's not right either.
Agreed.
You know, we're laughing at this, but it's a stupid rule,
it's
really.
laughable. It's like, how is that a rule? How is he allowed to hit someone and then come back onto the pitch 2 minutes later? So to wrap it up, my thing would be send off anyone that hits anyone.
Yeah.
Anyone. No matter how many players have already been sent off. Don't take the easy way out and say, I'm going to send off one player from either team, like we've seen over and over and over again. Number two, post-game, the referee and his officials watch it and they can send off whoever if they see a red card worthy incident. Then, on top of that, for club games where people can hit the referee, which we've seen, serious bans, more than they currently do. Ban for life if you interfere with a referee, as far as I'm concerned. And if you hit someone on the pitch, serious ban. If you hit someone off the pitch when the game is over, it's not a GAA ban. It's the same as it carries outside in normal life. Because say if you waited until that player went out onto the road outside the GAA pitch, well, then you are looking at a normal charge. I don't think why it should be different if you're standing on a GAA pitch and the game is over. The GAA match, look, is a GAA match. Scuffles happen on the pitch, and I think they should be judged individually to what happened with the scuffle. If a player initiated and was looking for a punch, then you could maybe evaluate it differently. But I'd be saying for sure, when the game is over, the game is over. And GAA bans need to be looked at, and I think we need to step them up a little bit to quell this. But definitely at the inter-county level, red cards anyone that strikes, and then post-game, the referee can watch it and send off people. And I guarantee you would see less incidents if this happens in the future. The last one then is the mother of them all, the new GAA calendar. And we have a draft here of a new GAA calendar, and we're going to run through it. Now, this is one that I came up with. Matthew, you are going to look at this with me and talk me through it. So obviously, with the GAA calendar here, what we'd be looking at here mainly is player welfare. So I'm just going to walk through the GAA calendar and see what you think about this. So January would be college championships, a straight knockout format where week 1 would be the last 16, week 2 would be the quarterfinals, week 3 would be the semifinals, and week 4 would be the college finals. February, then, the Allianz Hurling Leagues would kick off. I would put 6 teams in each division, so it would be a lot more competitive with the league finals happening at the end of March. Then I would also have the club leagues beginning all over the country with the same structure, if possible. Then in the last 2 weeks of February, the provincial football championships would begin, and they would run until the end of March. I'm not the biggest fan of the Allianz Football League. I think we should move where it is. I think we should move an Allianz Football League system into our championship, and I will get onto that. In March, the provincial football finals and the Allianz Hurling League finals happen. April, the players have a break and they have this month off. They can recoup, regather, and prepare for the championship. This month would then be full of build-up and excitement for the championship ahead. Just imagine, Matthew, the content that would be made in April previewing the championship. Then in May, it would all kick off. One weekend I would have as the men's championships kicking off, and the other weekend I would have as the women's championships kicking off. I would leave the Ladies Gaelic Football Championship exactly as it is. I would leave the Men's Hurling Championship exactly as it is. I would put the camogie structure into senior, intermediate, and junior, and I would also put the men's GAA championship into a senior championship, intermediate championship, and a junior championship, just like it is in the ladies Gaelic football. In June, all 4 All-Ireland County Championships would be taking place, and in July, we would have all 4 finals taking place in the final 2 weekends. In August, I would have a break where the players can have the month off, go travelling, and just enjoy their life like the normal people that they are. In September, the club championships begin. Ideally, I know it's not possible, but ideally all counties would have the same structure, and we'd be able to know that all counties were getting to their county final at the same stage, rather than what happens all the time where Ballygunner win the Waterford title and then they have to wait 2 months pretty much while every other county plays out their finals. I would have them all getting to the same stage at the same time. 16 clubs in their top division playoff for the championship of that county. So September equals the county club championships kicking off. October equals the county club finals. November equals the provincial club championship stage. And December equals the All-Ireland club championship stage, where the finals in all the All-Ireland club championships, junior and intermediate and senior, they all take place. Just what do you think about that in terms of what do you think could actually happen? Here is the last 3 months there. But what is your thoughts on that? Like, feel free. What would you be thinking here?
I think January, it's pretty good, all right. Yeah, I have the college competitions that we talked about, no lap over. That's absolutely brilliant there. The league, it's about different opinions, I suppose, with the Football League, because a lot of people argue that the league is much better than the football championship in general. And I would fear if you're going to take out the league, that you're going to take out a lot of enjoyment within the league at the moment.
To caveat that, Matt, sorry to caveat that, I don't think people would miss the league if the championship was like that. If we had a senior championship, an intermediate championship, and a junior championship, I think we would have the competitiveness of the league in the championship right from the off. That's why I feel like people would miss the provincial championships, so that's why I pushed them back to there. But I think if we had senior championship, intermediate championship, and junior championship, I think they would all be really hard to call. And I feel like that could kind of caveat that. I completely get why people want to keep the league. It has been a great competition, but you're right. It has been the pinnacle in terms of competitiveness over the last few years.
It definitely has. And what I'm thinking, like the junior, intermediate, and senior, that's much like the LGFA, and the LGFA still have their league, and it's absolutely brilliant that way. So I still think there could be room to keep the league if needed. Your changes at the hurling, I completely agree with you. Like I discussed this with Aaron on my podcast last night. We're coming to a stage now where we're not looking forward to the hurling league at all. Like most teams don't care. Aaron hasn't even put up a video about it.
Yeah,
which tells you something.
Like I was surprised because he normally gets to everything. If someone kicks a ball in their back garden, Aaron has a video up on it. Like in terms of, I was like, that shows. And on top of that, Limerick, Kilkenny, and Clare all didn't take the league seriously last year, and then they smashed it in the championship. And then Waterford won the league and then capitulated in the championship, showing that maybe they were too close and they just ran out of steam. So who's going to take this league seriously?
Exactly so. And when you look at the 6 divisions, when you look at Division 1, then there'll be actually reasons to be worried about relegation. You know? Like that would make it so much more interesting than it is already. Like, why did they? I think this is a very good system, very good new system. But why they changed the previous system with 1A and 1B? I don't know really. Like it was ridiculous. It was fine the way it was, with having Limerick, Cork in the 2nd division, then having Kilkenny, Galway, etc. in the 1st division, and having meaningful relegation. Now you know who's going to go down. Like either Laois, Antrim, or Westmeath. Take your pick. And it's just too predictable.
Every year it's been them getting promoted and relegated.
Yeah, and it has to stop. It really has to stop. The provincial championships, like a lot of people would agree with you, Seamus. I'm still on the fence over this because I'm just such a traditionalist. You know, because like I remember my first memory for Gaelic football was Michael Cousin's fisted goal against Kerry in the Munster final. and us coming back for the dead to beat them in Park Keefe. That was one of the best games I've ever been to, beating our rivals. And I think the rivalry, in some respects, might be gone out of it once the provincial championships go. That's just my opinion. I think
True.
like the Leinster Championship, it's a difficult one. Like Dublin are looking good at the moment, but I think Kildare and Meath, especially with Meath with Colm O'Rourke in now, I think they're going to come back. Kerry, like they have to rely on Cork to come back into it, and I think like if we call out errors over games, we can't get back into it. Like it's what's maybes for Munster and Leinster, but Connacht and Ulster, I think, are two of the most competitive championships in the country at the moment. Like in Connacht, you realistically could have three winners there in Roscommon,
Yeah.
Galway, Mayo. Ulster, you could have literally anybody but Antrim, I'd say. And
Yeah.
that's what makes it absolutely incredible. For example, Armagh haven't reached the provincial final since 2008. And we're
Yeah.
talking about Armagh as All-Ireland contenders. So I think still there could be room for a provincial championship. But I think in terms of the LGFA, the way they do, we go back to LGFA again. But the way they do it is have a provincial system. Then, as regards the provincial championships, have seedings for the group stages of the respective senior, intermediate, and junior competitions. And then play off the group stages and then have a quarter-final, semi-final, and final. I think that's a brilliant way to do it. I know the GAA will have too much pride and all that, not to copy the LGFA, but I think that's the way the GAA need to go, I think. Provincial
I would
championships.
keep the provincial championships there. I would either put them in end of February to the end of March running, and I would have them where the league happens with then the senior, intermediate, and junior in the championship there in the summer, and I think that would be way more competitive. But I agree with you. I think that the GAA is too embarrassed to admit that the LGFA are doing it better. I think they're too embarrassed to go, you know what? Because the men's game got way more exposure and attention, I feel like the ladies' game had to, think outside the box with their ideas of making the game better. And now they're just more used to doing that, and they're just better at doing that. Like they were first to the live streams, they were first to the better structure, they were first to, the countdown clock, they were first to the referee having a camera where you can get a shot of him throwing the ball in. Like, how cool is that? Like, they're first to these things because they've had to think outside the box. Whereas the GAA, in my opinion, for the men's game especially, have just got a bit complacent.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I definitely agree with you there. Yeah, absolutely. In regards to the break for April, I definitely would be up for it. I'd definitely be up for, players having the break. But I'm thinking, if you're going to have a break in April and August, I think 1 month should be a break. One of them months. I think August probably, because it splits club and county, I think brilliantly. But I think April, maybe the first 2 weeks a break, and then the last 2 weeks start the championships then, because there's still so many games to get through. And I think your idea about content going out in the first 2 weeks of April, imagine the preview shows we could put out then. It'd be brilliant.
That would be, remember we talked about the panel announcements? The panel announcements go up in the first week of April. Here's the squad that we're picking for the championship. Imagine the buzz if you watched Cork in the league and you watched Chris Oak-Jones, Conor Corbett storm into the Cork side, and then the Cork released their team at the end of the league. Or they released their team at the end of the Munster Championship if it was like this. And you said, oh, Corbett's in. Corbett made the squad. Yes, like I wanted Corbett in the squad. He's in. Like, that would be such a buzz for fans to get excited about. Oh, my player. Like, imagine for each club as well. Imagine for a club like who don't have many players on the county team, if they opened it and said, oh, like one of our boys made the county team, like it would be such a free publicity for the GAA again. Everyone would be talking about it. Every club would be sharing stories and posts. Congratulations to this guy for making the Dublin squad. Congratulations to this guy for making the Derry squad, the Cork squad. It would be all over the place. I do agree with you that maybe pushing back the opening day of the championships because we have the content, because you have so many games. The only thing is, I did speak with Sean Foran, obviously, former Dublin under-20 player, and then played, obviously, in the David Hickey competition for Dublin GAA before the league started. And he just put it perfectly to me. He said it to me. He just goes, managers would just use that month for pre-season. So I feel like he'd be like, well, we wouldn't stop playing because managers would just, put us training, and there'd be, challenge games and there'd be stuff like that. So could that be a potential issue for the break month?
It could be, yeah. It definitely could. Like a lot of teams will play challenge games anyway. So realistically, there couldn't even be a break. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
think there has to be something as well. Maybe stamp down for 2 weeks at least. Say no GA action. Let the players do assignments or something in college, or go out a few nights out or something like that. Just
Mm-hmm.
enjoy, something like
Yeah.
that. Then we're moving on to May. Like, I definitely agree with you on the Camogie, especially. I'm sorry, like I know Cork intermediate teams and Galway intermediate teams. Like, it's brilliant to see them in all Ireland finals, etc. last season, but it's boring. I'm sorry, like it's just B teams playing against each other rather than Derry and Meath coming up against. Imagine that, Derry and Meath coming up in the intermediate final. Imagine how much exposure they'd get. You know, I think that'd be brilliant to see. Personally, the football championship definitely. I think senior, intermediate, junior. I've been crying out for this for ages now. It has to
Mm-hmm.
be. But what I will say, last year we say the GA get a lot of things wrong, but I think with the Tailteann Cup and with how competitive the championship was with Kerry winning it in the end, obviously, I think, I don't know about you, Seamus, but I think the championship was better last year than it was in years ago. I'd say.
True.
I think
True.
I think it was, and maybe, like, I ask you this: would you still go senior, intermediate, or junior? Or would you keep the Tailteann Cup and the system as it is now?
I'd still go senior, intermediate, junior. I still would, because, for example, Westmeath won the Tailteann Cup. Now what? Are you going to win Leinster? No. Are you going to win the All Ireland? No. So where can you go? And the point is, and obviously, like, that's obviously a debate for itself. The senior, intermediate, and junior championships, in my opinion, would give each county a very realistic chance of winning the championship that they are in at the start of every year. They would give every team the opportunity of winning their respective championship at the start of the year. You look at teams like Laois, Tipperary, who are relatively middle of the pack when it comes to the talent pool that they've got. Now, what do those two counties have in common? The two of the best players, two of, say, the group of the best players that those counties have had of the last 15, 20 years, Zach Toohey from Laois and Colin O'Riordan from Tipperary, have gone to Australia and played pretty much their entire career there because they just know we're not really going to win anything here. Like, Colin O'Riordan bleeds blue and gold, but he knows, and he flew back to play in the Cork game. You know what I mean? Like, he knew that 2020 was his golden chance to win a Munster title with Tipperary, and obviously they took it. But in terms of, remember, how many teams have we seen over the last 6-7 years that have had a bounce? But then with the current structure, it becomes very clear that they can only win so much, and then they run out of steam. So look at Carlow Rising 2018. They seem to have the whole world behind them. And then in the middle of that, Brendan Murphy goes to London. Their best player leaves just before the championship kicks off, after they got promoted from Division 4. Can you imagine if Carlow could go for a junior All-Ireland championship off the back of getting promoted from Division 4? Imagine that. Imagine the buzz if they could get to a junior All-Ireland final off the back of, I don't think it would even matter if they'd won, because they would have then had so much motivation to go and win it next year. But then when they got relegated from Division 3 and they realised there's only so far we can go, it all fell apart. You look at Leitrim, they've made a bounce, got up to Division 3, straight back down to Division 4. Antrim, Enda McGinley, gone, they're back down to Division 4, in my opinion, at the end of this league campaign. Like, senior, intermediate, and junior. Look at Meath. Look at Meath in the ladies' game. Relegated to intermediate championship after taking a hammering from Cork. Like, it's a tough game to watch. And then they rebuild, regroup, win intermediate championship, come up and win back-to-back senior championships. That, to me, this structure would just give teams an opportunity to build, similar to the way that the league has done with Derry, where Division 3, they're just getting better and better and better. Division 2, getting better and better and better. I think, for me, senior, intermediate, junior championship is still the way to go. Because Tailteann Cup, yes, it was fun and the coverage of it was great. Let's see if that coverage is the same in 5 years. Remember the Tommy Murphy Cup? You didn't even know where the games were being played. I wonder, was there even team buses going to the games, or were players having to get the Lewis out to it? Like, crazy. So let's see if it's the same.
Yeah, I suppose like the Tailteann Cup I think was brilliant last year in its own way. Like you look at Sligo getting to Croke Park was brilliant. For them achievements. But Sean Kavanagh, raised the arguments like yourself doing now. Is Carlow going to win the Tailteann Cup? Probably not. Is Wicklow going to win the Tailteann Cup? No. Look, I think they've promising players, so in my opinion, they could. I'm thinking maybe.
Not in the next 5 years.
Not in the next 5 years, no?
No, I don't think so. I think as long as there's a Cavan or a Fermanagh or a Down or someone like that there, they win it. The upper echelons of Division 3, the bottom two from Division 2, they're the ones that I'd expect to win it every year.
But then the bottom two teams in Division 2 didn't win it last year.
True.
They didn't. It was Westmeath. And when you think about it, Carlow, when you look at the shocks in it, London got Sligo to extra time.
True.
Also, Leitrim took Sligo to penalties. Carlow beat Tipperary.
True.
And I think if teams took it seriously, there could be something there. I think, honestly, the two teams that didn't take it seriously were Tipperary and Down. That
True.
Was the honest truth.
And look, as I said it to you when you asked the question, I still prefer this to what we had before. I still prefer it. But I just wish that they'd gone with senior, intermediate, and junior. It's like, I still like this, don't get me wrong, but I prefer senior, intermediate, junior. I think that would just tick all the boxes for me.
Yeah, I suppose so. And even while we're on Carlow as well, Carlow were very close to beating the eventual champions, Westmeath.
Mm-hmm.
And when they were supposedly on a downward spiral, having had the worst defence in the league, they still pulled something out of the bag to have a good Tailteann Cup campaign. So there are some positives to this. I think so anyway, but I do get your point. I would have wanted senior to be the junior for ages, but I just believe that the GAA have got this right. And there's the saying, as the saying goes, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
Looking at it last year, it wasn't broken. I think the Tailteann Cup was a success. The television coverage, and it's going to get even better according to the GAA go this year, but then again, you don't know what RT are up to. So I don't know what's going to happen. But if they produce more content this year and more podcasts and stuff like that, we do our bit as well to promote it. I think it'll get even better this year. I genuinely think so. But I do get your point on are they realistically going to win the Tailteann Cup? Because there could be, I hate saying this now, but Cork could go down to the Tailteann Cup. And then again, if Cork take it seriously, Cork could easily hammer a Carlow or Leitrim.
Yeah.
So I do get your point about as long as those kind of big sides are still there, there's still, a chance that the other teams might flop. So yeah, it's an interesting discussion, definitely. But I think the Tailteann Cup was good last year.
That's my point, is that I still think that there are still 3 tiers in the GAA. I still think like the likes of Roscommon, not Roscommon, they've beaten Tyrone, but the likes of, in my opinion, Meath, Cork, they're still a good bit ahead of the likes of Wicklow, the likes of Waterford. They're still a good bit ahead of those teams. And that's why I'd be saying senior, intermediate, junior. And the likes of Cork and Meath would be in intermediate championship. And then you mentioned about how Carlow beat Tipperary and put it up to Westmeath. If Carlow win the junior championship, they get a crack at those intermediate teams and they'd be coming with loads of momentum. So I feel like that would be really interesting to see happen. But yeah, definitely, it's a very interesting debate. Then what do you think about moving on from that, the August break and then the club championship?
First of all, the June and July, I think that's brilliant to see. And one thing the GAA has got wrong is the group stages and the qualifiers this year. Why? Just why Why do you need to bring that in this year?
Whose idea was that?
Somebody needs to get sued, I'd say, Seamus. How could you honestly think of this idea and think it's a good idea? Like, I was saying this off air, something to Aaron the other day as well. You could conceivably have a team on one point, and they could be in an All-Ireland quarter-final in Croke Park. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous, really. Like, it goes back to the situation where in the hurling league a few seasons ago, Cork lost all their games. Galway, they played in the relegation playoff where Galway had like 3 points. The relegation playoff, then Cork win the game and Galway go down. How much of a joke is this? Like,
yeah,
it's incredible, really, when you think about it. Like, second place plays third place. Why can't you just have first and second place teams in the quarterfinals?
Yeah.
At least that. I mean, why the GAA even thought of this? I don't know.
That's the thing, when it comes up on the Sunday game and there's all arrows pointing this way, and if they win this, they do this. If they win this, can you just not have a straightforward system of like 16 teams in one championship, 16 in another, and then can you not just do that, please? Just have
make life easier.
For the information as well, by the way, for senior, intermediate, junior, I would have 12, 12, 10. That would be the structure that I would go with. Division 1, the 8 teams in Division 1 now, and the top 4 from Division 2 would be my senior championship. The bottom 4 from Division 2 and Division 3 would be my intermediate championship. And then, of course, the remaining teams then would be my junior championship. So, I don't know. I think that works out pretty well. There'd be no confusion of who goes where, who play, like, whoever, if you win, you're through. Not if you get a draw, somehow you're in the quarterfinal. Like, I don't understand how that makes sense.
It really doesn't make sense. And to add to that as well, Seamus, when they were talking on League Sunday about it as well, and this is the one thing I agree with Kavanagh on. Very few things I agree with him on, usual. But this also adds more games for players as well.
Yeah.
Leagueless
the last
games.
thing we need is more games.
Like, why? Why? Like, on so many levels, this decision is probably up there with one of the worst GAA decisions in the past few seasons. Like, when you think about it, the All-Ireland Championship last year with the 2 qualifier rounds, I enjoyed it. That was fine. Leave it that way. I mean, why are you trying to complicate the whole competition, add more games? Players are going to get tired. Journalists are going to get confused. It's not benefiting anybody. Mm-hmm. And a team on 1 point could go to Croke Park. I mean, honestly, it's ridiculous. And I think the June and July play that for all our championships. I think that's absolutely fine. August break, absolutely. 100%. Let the players have holidays. Let them go off to Marbella or Ibiza or somewhere.
Yeah.
Let them enjoy the sun. Brilliant. September, I agree with that. The one thing, you're saying hopefully they'll be on the same trajectory as well with Ballygunner playing in September. The one thing, the caveat to that, Wexford and Waterford have something at the moment where they play hurling first and then football afterwards. Would you ban that altogether now and play football and hurling simultaneously in those counties?
Yeah, I would if I could, but obviously each county dictates themselves what they do. But I don't think it benefits Ballygunner to. Ballygunner always win the Waterford title, and then there's 3 or 4 weeks where they're just watching the other club games take place, and you almost forget, Ballygunner are already into the Munster Championship, that type of thing. I'd prefer if they were all like one weekend, the Limerick hurling final, the Cork hurling final, the Clare hurling final, the Tip hurling final, the Waterford hurling final are all happening today. Imagine that.
Yeah, it'll be some coverage as well, and that kind of feeds into the fact there should be more live streaming as well.
And there'll be live streams of the games shown on Club League Sunday. Come on.
Exactly, that'll solve all our problems, definitely. And definitely the All-Ireland counties have the same. Yeah, exactly, 16 teams. Well, for the Cork top division, there's 12, and then there's colleges and there's divisions, which makes it even more weird. I don't know what you think about that. There's 7 quarterfinalists in Cork. I'm not sure you're fan of that. There's 6 quarterfinalists and 1 goes through to the semi-finals. But that's the Cork Championship for you. The October, county championships, provincial championships, and the All Ireland club championships and stuff like that, and the All Ireland club finals at all levels. The only problem I'd have with that, I think it's a brilliant structure. The thing is, and it's not changeable. No matter what we do in the world today, we can't do it, and it's the weather.
Yeah.
Like waterlogged pitches, there's going to be waterlogged pitches all around the county, like country, even like you look at even down in Cork, like most of the games were playing the 4G pitch when they were played somewhere like East Cork or somewhere, and then the game has to be moved on that morning. That's not fair to players either. You know, when you're getting a text from the group chat saying, "Oh, this game's been moved to another pitch." I mean, the confusion levels will go all the way up. So I think
would it be a case
have to
of
think,
that you would then play those games on 4G pitches from the outset?
yeah, you have
Like
to.
that you would say, okay, once it hits November, all games are played on 4G pitches.
Yeah,
They're
I
all
think
played
that's
on the
it.
Astros. Like, so for
To be
example,
honest,
like
like,
DCU have an Astro. DCU have, how many Astros do DCU? DCU have 2 Astros tomorrow. They have the one in St. Clair's and they have the one behind St. Pat's College in Drumcondra. Then you look at other Astros there. You look at the one in Clontarf. There's a lot in Dublin, a lot of Astro pitches that teams could play on, to put it mildly. And I would say the same, you know, down, I'm sure, and down in colleges, down in Munster, there's 4G pitches all over the place. In the future, and obviously this is me thinking 10, 15 years into the future. In the future, the answer is the Air Dome for me.
yeah,
Over in Connacht, obviously, they played the FBD League. Like, that's awesome. Imagine an All-Ireland club final happening in the Dome. Like, the atmosphere would be incredible if it was traveling up all over the place. If it was there like an echo of the crowd, if a ball goes into the back of the net, it would feel awesome. That's the future, though. And we're talking about the here and now. Do you think playing it on 4G pitches would be the way forward?
I think so, yeah. And at your point about Munster pitches, I think Limerick, their game was moved from the Gaelic grounds against Lough last season because of a wicked storm one week in the Allianz League. It was moved to Maguire's in UL.
Yeah.
And to be honest, like it was still windy, but the pitch still held up. And that was the main thing. Like in Cork, I'm thinking Parky Keefe, Bishopstown, the Parky Keefe 4G pitch. But I'm thinking about these 4G pitches and the Dome as well, Seamus. You have to add more seats to them as well, if that's possible. You have to add more to generate a crowd as well. I think stadiums like Semple Stadium, like as well, common sense has to come into play as well. Like you can't, in winter, you can't have a game in a place called, I don't know, Lisgould in Cork in the middle of November, December, when you know the pitch is going to be waterlogged.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ridiculous, really. The game is obviously going to be changed, you know, so play the games on a good pitch. But we've seen so many times with Croke Park in particular, and I've said this over the last few weeks as well, the more games that are played at the pitch, the worse the pitch is going to get in the next few weeks as well. So that's another issue, really, and that goes into the number of games as well. So, yeah, I think have to do that. And, yeah, I think if you can, if it's possible, reduce the number of games as well, if possible. So
definitely in that structure, the games would be reduced. And this definitely brings me to one last debating point that I thought of while we were talking there is, what if the game ends a draw? Now, you were talking to me off air and you were talking about, you know, your opinions on replays. Obviously, last year we saw penalty shootouts come in to the GAA. A lot of people mixed opinions on them. I've seen a lot of, you know, suggestions, a golden point or a golden score in the GAA, where if someone scores the first point to be scored is the winning score, the game's over. That would be pretty fun. What would you think?
I think that's a very good idea, actually. The reason I didn't like replays, I said this off air to you as well. I think back to Cork and Kerry in 2015. Cork played their hearts out in Killarney, drew the game thanks to a brilliant Fionn Fitzgerald point later on, went to a replay. 2 weeks later, we play Kerry in the pouring rain down in Killarney again. We lose by 5 points. Then a week later, we have to go out to Thurles to play against Kildare and we lose.
Yeah.
So we're in a situation where we play so well against Kerry. We're on the verge of playing a Fermanagh in the All-Ireland quarterfinal. That's the way it would have gone. And potentially an All-Ireland final against Dublin. And that would have been brilliant for Cork football. To then going out of the championship to Kildare in Tipperary. I mean,
Yeah.
I didn't like replays at all, but maybe in the All-Ireland quarter-final, but we said we don't want the number of games to get even higher in general, so maybe replays are a thing of the past, in my opinion. I think goal to score would be brilliant. It'd be brilliant. Like, imagine the scenes of that. Imagine the intensity in the last few minutes of teams trying to rob the ball after each other and then going up the field. And imagine if you kick it wide at the end and then the other team kicks it out and then get the score off the end. Oh, what scenes that would be. It'd be incredible. Incredible scenes. Penalty shootouts. I heard Finian Hanley, a former Galway footballer, was commentating on University of Galway against UL the other night, actually, in the Sigerton Cup. And he was saying he liked penalties. I don't know about it. Like, it's
Like, I mean,
an
it
okay
definitely
thing.
is dramatic, and I can't argue with that. And
Yeah,
sure, not
exactly.
I'll admit this. When it was coming towards the end of the Armagh Galway game and they were level, I was saying, I actually hope this goes to penalties. That would be a pretty fun way of finishing this off, because I knew we weren't going to get a replay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like it was fun, but at the same time, there's going to be a villain as well in this.
True. There's going to be
At
a
the
guy
end
who
of
wins.
it was Stephen Campbell and Conor Turbers for that picker shootout, unfortunately. You know, and yeah, it was hard on them, really hard on Armagh. Like, Armagh put so much into that game, and to still come out losing a 4-1 at penalties, I think it was.
Yeah.
That must have been a hard one to take for Armagh, definitely. And Leitrim as well. Like, Leitrim and Sligo, the Tallaght Cup was even more harsh because Leitrim had a goal wrongfully disallowed, and then they lose on penalties. I mean, that was. I think it is dramatic, unbelievably dramatic, and great entertainment. But Aaron, we talk about Aaron so much in this, and he's not even here. But he was saying a few years ago, actually, when penalties was introduced, that it's not a skill of Gaelic football, kicking it off the ground. At least if you're kicking it off your hands, that could be a way as well in deciding it.
Maybe, yeah.
So yeah, there could be suggestions over this. It is dramatic, but overall, I wouldn't be up for replays at all. I think king of the past now. I've gone past replays in all honesty. Maybe it's because Cork lost that game, particularly in 2015. But look,
if you're talking money wise, replays are brilliant for the GAA. If you're talking, I think if you're talking money wise and eyeball, like attention wise, replays are brilliant for the GAA. Because imagine if two scenarios last year. Imagine if Tony Kelly hits that sideline over the bar, Clare draw level with Limerick in an amazing game, and B, Reno O'Neill hits that free over the bar for Armagh against Galway in Croke Park, and they go down and have a scuffle on their way down the tunnel. And then both those games, curtains done. Replay is going to be next week. The whole week around the country, there'd be coverage, previews. We'd be speaking about it until we went blue in the face about the replay coming up, what's going to happen in the replay. It would be brilliant for the GAA to bring in eyeballs and bring in attention, because that game between Clare and Limerick was one of the best hurling games I've ever seen. And if I knew next week they're going to do it all again, I would be buzzing to see that game. Same with Armagh Galway. So I get your point about the replays, but in the way, if the GAA was trying to bring more attention to the sport, are they a good thing?
Yeah, I think they're a good thing for all our quarterfinals when you don't have a game next week against another team. I think they're good then, but
that could be it. That could maybe from All Ireland quarterfinal stage, there are replays.
Yeah, exactly. When you don't have another game other than the winners, and the winners will love a replay because the momentum will take them into the All Ireland semi-final. Losers are gone completely.
Yeah.
So I think possibly you could do that, but for provincial championships, I think they should be scrapped. Honestly, I just think, like, in case the losers have a game the week after, then, and they just won't be in the right headspace. I just think anyway. So I think, bring them in for all our quarterfinals, but I think other than that, I think replays should be gone, to be honest.
To big up the senior, intermediate, junior one more time, if that was brought in, there would be no replays possible until they did actually get to the quarterfinals. So that would actually fit in quite nicely. I think maybe if there was provincial, I would agree with you on the provincial football side, but who wouldn't want to see Clare and Limerick throw down again? I mean, after that game, that would have been absolutely mental. But yeah, we've been chatting now for an hour 40. Can you think of anything else as a GAA fan that you'd like to see maybe be tweaked before we wrap up?
Jesus, I don't know. One particular thing, ban the advance mark. I'm sorry, get rid of it. Get rid of it. It's ridiculous. It's not a skill of Gaelic football. It's more like AFL.
Yeah.
I mean, why is it there? Simply like it's. Oh, jeez.
Yeah, we'll add that one in. Why not? We'll add that one in. The advance mark. I think, definitely if you're talking, there are ways to do it. And I saw Colin Woolley Parkinson. He was saying if you kicked it from outside the 45 to inside the 21, well, then it has to be a big kick. So then maybe or I think it was like if you kick it from your own half to inside the 21, well, then it's a boomer of a kick. And if you get that, well, then you maybe deserve a shot at the posts. But I agree with you. There was one game, I think, where Laois played 3 midfielders in the full forward line. I think Kieran Lillis kicked 5 marks or something. I was like, I remember seeing the match report and being like, God, that must have been tough to watch. A player catching a ball kicked from 10 yards away from him and putting his hand up and sticking the ball over from a free. Yeah, I agree with you. I think unless it's kicked from a big distance out, maybe then I'll allow it. But other than that, no.
Yeah, geez. Even the ones from between the 65 and the 45 kicked into the forward. I mean, that's a joke.
Yeah,
that's not a long kick. That like most of the time, actually, comedically enough, like they'll be kicked just outside the 45 into the forward into the chest. Like it's ridiculous, really. Yeah, exactly. And even the Kieran long kicks and stuff. It's an advantage. Teams are trying to take advantage of it, but it's more like AFL rather than Gaelic football now. We don't want to change our game too much. Like we've already changed, end of the game and penalties, so it'll suit soccer. Like we don't want to change our game too much because the uniqueness of it is gone. When you think about it.
I have one more thing that I saw suggested, and I am going to I'm just going to suggest it here. Long range points. I remember seeing a couple of years ago, people suggested that if you kick a point from outside the 65, or if you kick a point from outside the 45, you're awarded 2 points for it instead of 1. So, for example, do you remember when we used to see like Paul Flynn, for example, boom over a point from pretty much the halfway line? Do you think that could be a good thing to maybe entice players to go for it from way further out, and we could see some truly amazing points scored? Or would that, because I'm completely on the fence with that one, and probably would say no, I would not vote for that to be in, but I'm open to hearing an argument for it.
I would think there should be 2 points awarded for points kicked beyond the 45. I think we see it too much now. I think the game has developed so much nowadays, so I think that wouldn't be good. But I think there could be an argument. What about a sideline?
A sideline, yeah, actually.
Yeah, I think so. Like that could be one, definitely.
Well, in the hurling, they're pinging them over every game. Easy work.
So you can't add 2 points there. I know Camogie adds 2 points to it. I know ladies football adds 2 points for a 45.
Imagine if Joe Canning got 2 points for every sideline he scored.
Yeah. I remember Fintan Burke actually scored 3 sidelines in one game against Limerick.
Joe Canning got 4 in one game for his college. Mental stuff.
Unreal. I think the only, actually, as a matter of interest, the only 2 footballers, I think, to kick it beyond the 65 were Niall Morgan and Rory Beggan. Correct me if I'm wrong now. I think they were the only 2. Rory Beggan against Dublin and Niall Morgan against Kerry.
To my knowledge, yes. Maybe, are you talking free kicks?
I'm talking free kicks. Yeah, I don't think anybody scored from play.
Where did Brian Sheehan hit that one from?
I think it was between the 45 and 65.
Sean O'Shea's one would have been the same.
Yeah, would have been the same.
Yeah, okay. Well then,
So,
then it's Began and Morgan. Because I remember their kicks as well. I remember particularly Began's because I remember being like, what is he doing going for it from here?
yeah.
He just nailed it. Like I was like, what? This fella. But I don't know. That's pretty much it. We've touched on pretty much everything there. Been a good chat, Matt. Thanks for coming on.
No bother, Seamus. Great to help and brilliant video.
All right, good stuff. Thank you for joining us. Do get involved in the comments below. Let me and Matt know if we're right or if we're wrong. And until the next one, guys,